Hello, Chicago. Welcome, Bears fans, to the Bears Huddle podcast with me, Owen James, your host, guys. We're coming at you here from the UK, from the wrong side of the pond. Yes, it is 11:15 at night here in the UK, and we're recording a video just for you over there in the States, and of course for all the Bears fans all over the world. We're going to talk a little bit of TJ Edwards. We're going to talk a little bit of Rome Odunze and what the legend, I've got to say, I'm starting to really love this guy, Antoine Randle had to say. We're also going to look at what Dennis Allen, a little bit of Dennis Allen as well. He spoke today to the media. Look, I mean, so much good stuff. And I've got to say, you know what? I was sat tonight, I was waiting to pick my daughter up from dancing. She was gone dancing tonight, and I was waiting in the car. And of course, I thought, right, let's put on the pressers, put on the press availabilities that were on, watch those. I've got to say, you know what? I've never been so enthused and excited for a season. I really haven't. And I know words are not the main thing. I know actions speak louder than words. Don't get me wrong. I'm not believing that we're just going to win the Super Bowl just because of the fact that coaches can talk a good battle and the players can talk the words, talk the talk. I know you've got to walk the walk. I get that. I understand that. But you've got to be positive when you've got a coaching staff, like Declan Doyle today, like Dennis Allen, like Antoine Randle, all talking, the way they talk about the players, the way they talk about Ben Johnson, the scheme, the way they talk about what they want to bring to this franchise. It is just absolutely fantastic. It is absolutely spot on. We're going to get to TJ Edwards as well. I think one of the most underrated players on the Bears roster. I think well-deserved extension for him. I've got to say, I do love those graphics the Bears media guys are coming out with at this moment in time. Absolutely amazing. The Kyler Gordon ones the other day, and a fantastic one for TJ Edwards as well. Right, look, I mean, on what's been said, I mean, it was just innovative. It was just positive. It was just exactly what you want to hear as a fan. You want to hear your coaching staff come out and talk positively about your team's chances, talk up your team's chances, and build the confidence of your players, build the confidence of your fans. Now, I know that obviously the old adage, you build them up to shoot something down. I know that can happen. But, overall, you've got to say that it was very, very positive what came out of those pressers today. I think one of the highlights for me was Antoine Randle was asked about the draft last year. And he was asked about who his top wide receiver was in the draft. Obviously Marvin Harrison Jr. was one of the names that was mentioned. Obviously as the top receiver. Obviously he was the top one taken, but Antoine Randle was very, very clear on who he said was his wide receiver one. He says it was not Marvin Harrison Jr. It was not Malik Neighbors, obviously, who are very highly rated within the NFL. It was Rome Odunze, the Bear. That's who he said was his number one guy. Now, look, I get it. Of course he's going to say that. He's a Bears coach now. Of course he's going to come out and say it's Rome Odunze. He's not going to come out and say it's Marvin Harrison Jr. He's not going to come out and say it's Malik Neighbors. Of course he isn't going to want to talk down his guy. That's not who he is. That's not how Antoine Randle works. But, what does that do for the confidence of that young man? That your wide receiver coach, the assistant head coach, is talking in such positive terms about you and about how he rates you and what he thinks of you. I mean, you've got to say that is fantastic. And what it does for that young man's positivity, that young man's outlook on the game has got to be spot on. Now, obviously new wide receiver coach Antoine Randle has worked previously under Ben Johnson, so he gets what Ben Johnson wants. He gets how Ben Johnson works. You also remember as well, this is a guy who has worked with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams, two very, 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 very talented wide receivers in the NFL. If he can get the growth, the ability, the talent, the skill advance that he got out of Amon-Ra St. Brown, he got out of Jameson Williams, and he can get that out of Rome Odunze, who I think has got the skills and has got the talent there to really kick on. What a player we're going to have. This is what his exact quote was. Last year, everyone had Marvin Harrison Jr. number one, then Malik Neighbors. I had Rome number one. Fantastic. fantastic. Absolutely brilliant to hear. Now, Dunze was still, he still was a top 10 pick. He still was one of the blue chip players. He still played very well for the Bears. Played in all 17 games. He started 12 of those 17. He had 54 catches for 734 yards and 3 TDs. Ranked third on the team in receptions, yardage, and fourth in receiving touchdowns. So with DJ Moore being the only kind of vet there, a lot is going to fall on Odunze this year. And I think, listening to his wide receiver coach talk so positively about him, and obviously, given the fact that Randle is talking about him in that way, it's clear that, that is something that is obviously a priority for the Bears this season to get the best out of Rome Odunze. He's clearly a big part of Ben Johnson's plans, a big part of Declan Doyle's, Press Taylor, Antoine Randle's plans for the new season. So you've got to have confidence that they can bring the best out of Rome Odunze. And like I've seen so many times now on social media, across Bears social media, you can see the whole, big season loading, big season coming. And I really do genuinely think that from this, Rome Odunze is going to take a whole load of confidence and he's going to really kick on when it comes to the fourth coming season. I think that is just superb, and it is really, really, really good to hear as well. Dennis Allen as well talked very well about the future. He talked very well about the defense. He talked about the type of defense that he wants to bring in. He was there with special teams coordinator Richard Hightower at Hallis Hall on Thursday, and he was very clear, in his message. He said that sort of bend don't break defense, that basic defense, he says, will not be there next season. It will be a fast, it will be an aggressive, it will be, I think, going back to bringing back the monsters of the Midway, bringing back that aggression, bringing back that defense to be feared in Chicago. Now, don't get me wrong, the defense wasn't bad last season. It was probably, it was better than the offense. Probably wasn't hard. But, at the end of the day, Dennis Allen is a guy who knows how to put an aggressive defense out there, knows how to put a defense out there that's going to cause an offense nightmares. And this is something that he was very, very clear on in his press availability today. He talked, like I said, of that aggressiveness, of that in-your-face kind of approach. And I think that is such a good positivity there, from Dennis Allen, to hear what he is talking about. Now, there was also an interesting point that came out of the presser as regards Kyler Gordon. Dennis Allen said that he fancied seeing Kyler Gordon in a second position as well. Now, obviously, the Bears have just made him the highest paid nickel corner in the NFL, and obviously he's outstanding there, Spidey. But they want to see him in a second position. They want to see him used in a different way. And that was apparently that they're going to want to see him and try him at safety. Now, this could bring an interesting proposition, given the fact that the Bears are talking about needing another safety. This is, well, not the Bears in particular, I suppose the analysts, the Bears talking about a safety being a top priority for the Bears. We've got Kevin Byard, obviously, and Jaquan Brisker as our starters. Jaquan Brisker obviously has those injury issues. Is this something that could work? Could Kyler Gordon become a safety and, really even further increase his value to the team? I think, this is a real possibility. This is a real high quality approach, the Bears, new coaching staff are going to do. They're going to look at these players and look at how they can use them, how they can innovate with them, how they can get the best out of them. And listening to, Dennis Allen talk about possibly using Kyler Gordon as a safety does really put an interesting spin on things. Does this mean now that safety won't be a priority in the draft? I still think it will, perhaps not as high a priority if they think that Kyler Gordon can do that and can play there. It's interesting stuff. And like I said, one of the biggest things that's come out of this constantly is this innovation, this positivity, this aggression, this using the players, the best players we've got to get the best out of it. And I think, that is, spot on. And Dennis Allen also said this. He said, tough, nasty, hyper competitive, play with a swagger, play with a chip on your shoulder. I think that's the kind of been the hallmark of the best defenses that I've been around. I think that's been a hallmark of a lot of the great defenses in Chicago. I think that's what we're looking for. So spot on. I think, again, spot on. Very exciting times lay ahead for the Bears, listening to coordinators. And then we'll bring out some more videos across the channel, across the rest of this week, looking at what the coordinator said, looking at key messages, looking at what it could mean for the Bears going forward. Now, obviously, the other big news of today was the signing of TJ Edwards to a new extension. Ryan Poles is cooking this off-season. He is working his magic. He is certainly tying up some quality players. Obviously, Kyler Gordon tied to an extension. TJ Edwards now tied to an extension. But, not just that. You go back across and you look at who else is tied up. Like I said, Jalen Johnson is tied up to an extension. He's really working hard on bringing these players and keeping these players at the Bears, the best players that we have, and keeping them here and keeping them under contract. TJ Edwards, obviously, I think, is one of the most underrated players on the Bears team. He certainly is a player that I feel, has had a massive impact over the last couple of years. I was looking at some of his stats earlier, and his stats are excellent. His stats are really, really good. And like I said, I think he's kind of gone under the radar a little bit, in terms of what he's produced for the Bears over the last few seasons. But he has got some very good stats, and I think securing him to this deal is the absolute right one to do. I mean, if you go to last season, I mean, obviously one of the best abilities is availability. Well, he played 17, he started 17. He had 1 interception, he had 3 passes defensed, he had 1 forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries, and 4 sacks, a career high 4 sacks, 129 combined tackles, 79 solo, 50 assisted, 12 tackles for a loss, 6 QB hits. I mean, this is a guy who can do it all. He can sack the quarterback, he can put the QB under pressure, he can defend passes, he can cover. He's a tackling machine. And I think keeping him in Chicago for another couple of years is absolutely spot on from Ryan Poles. I think he's done some sterling work on keeping some quality players in Chicago. Ryan Poles spoke of TJ Edwards, obviously when it finally became official. And this is what he said. He said, "Our entire organisation is excited for TJ and his family. TJ has had a positive impact on our organisation over the last 2 years, both on and off the field. We are grateful to have TJ as a member of the Chicago Bears family, and we look forward to his continued leadership on our team. We're happy that TJ and his family will remain members of the Chicago Bears." Ben Johnson added to this by saying, "It's not hard to notice the influence that TJ has in our building. We are excited to have his leadership as we work to build our team." This is a top player. This is a really, really top player. And yes, he's only had 2 years here at the Bears. He was previously with, obviously, the Philadelphia Eagles. He's got a good grounding in NFC, gruesome, in-your-face football. But he's come in, he's made a difference, and he has been absolute quality. If you go back even to 2023, again, 17 played, 17 started. Availability, the best ability, guys. 3 interceptions, 4, what else did he have that year? 7 passes defensed, 1 forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries, 2.5 sacks, 91 tackles. This is a guy who loves to hit, and I think having him as back in our team for a length of time as one of our linebackers is just a fantastic piece of business by Ryan Poles, and another element and another piece in what has been an excellent off-season so far. Like I keep saying, I know you can be champions of the off-season. I know it doesn't mean anything come football starting time, come NFL week 1. I get that. I understand that. Actions speak louder than words, but you can only take what you see now and run with it and work with it. Guys, let me know your thoughts on what you've seen. Thank you for watching the Bears Huddle podcast. On your way out, please like, comment, share, and subscribe, and let's bear down.